Before you is a copy of Fantastic Four #1, but this, given away by the $4.99 price tag, is not the original copy. But as far as greatest hits, this is the greatest hit that Marvel Comics had in the 1960s. This started, written by Stan Lee and written and drawn by Jack Kirby. This started the Marvel Universe as we know it. We have these 4 characters here: Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm, and Mr. Fantastic. They comprise the Fantastic Four. If you've read comics any length of time, you know the story behind these characters. You know who Reed Richards is. You know who Ben Grimm, Susan Storm, and Johnny Storm are. But in 1961, nobody knew who these characters were. They didn't know about the Invisible Girl. They didn't know about Ben Grimm, the Awesome Thing. Johnny Storm, who's a hothead in more ways than one. And they didn't know about Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, and his ability to shape his body in a malleable way. But you get this amazing artwork by Jack Kirby. And you know what's crazy is that I'm not the greatest Jack Kirby fan. His over-exaggeration, which is what a lot of people absolutely love, doesn't always stick with me. But in this issue, it's a little bit rougher around the edges, and honestly, I like it better that way. We get to see the accident, the cosmic rays that created the Fantastic Four. And it changed each of them, giving them fantastic powers, no pun intended. It made them so much more than what they had been before, the people that they had been in life. Now they had these great powers. And even Ben Grimm, who was upset and angry about his new status as something to be mocked, he says, you don't have to make a speech. We got to use that power to help mankind. It never crossed his mind at that point in the story, that point in the character's life, to hurt anybody using that power, to go after anybody except for Mr. Fantastic, who had been the architect of Ben's disfigurement, the architect of all of their fantastic powers. But at what cost? Because you have Johnny who can fly around and catches on fire. But we don't have to wait very long because they have to work together as a team against the Mole Man. And it's funny to think of all of the interesting characters that Stan and Jack would come up with over the next 103 issues. It's amazing to think that the Mole Man was the first one that came about. He was their first test, not only as a team, but as a family, because you have Reed and Sue who are together, and then you have Johnny, who is her hot-headed brother, but even Johnny, in his youthful state, understands that Sue is good for Reed because she keeps him grounded, because Reed is the big brain, and he has a lot of intelligence, but not always a lot of common sense. So Sue keeps him grounded that way. And then Ben, of course, is the powerhouse of the team. So it's amazing to go back and look and see the birth of this team, the birth of really a comic book that I have tried multiple times to get into out of reverence for their place in the Marvel Universe, and I've never been able to do it. I can't stay more than a couple of issues because it doesn't interest me. It's different than a Spider-Man book or a Doctor Doom book or an Iron Man book. It's got that family feel to it. And oddly enough, it's a different familial feel than Blood Brothers Mother that I just talked about a little while ago. So, I love these old ads. These are so cool. You sell grit, you might win this $2,000 coin. Then you got a jukebox bank. That would be kind of cool to have. People want your poems, 1,001 things to get free, but you got to pay 50 cents shipping and handling to get the book. The energy and the sheer dominance and force that came from this book created the Marvel Universe, along with Spider-Man and all of the other great heroes that came after. So, like I said, this is the greatest hit of all the greatest hits that I've talked about so far. This just came out this week. As far as I know, they're going to do probably the first 12 issues in facsimile editions of this book. So that would be kind of cool because I actually have a rather beat-up copy of issue 13. So I would have, at that point, the first year of Fantastic Four. So I'm going to go back and try to read these one at a time every month and see if I can get into this title, and then continue on. So, thanks for joining me for this episode of Greatest Hits. And like I said, this was the facsimile edition of Fantastic Four, Issue 1, by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.